Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Instacar HK. Today we're reviewing a very special car that I'm completely in love with, and the fact that it is here today shows that all my prayers have been answered. And that is this 2003 Lamborghini Murcielago 40th anniversary. Now, any V12 Lamborghinis are special, but the one we have here today is extra special, being the 40th anniversary edition. Lamborghini only made 50 of them worldwide, and the one we have here is the only one in Hong Kong. Now, Lamborghini produced this model in 2003, obviously to celebrate the brand's 40th anniversary, as they did with the 25th anniversary Countach and the 30th anniversary Diablo. Now, being a special edition, the car of course has a lot of perks that are special and specific to it. First of all is the color scheme. All the 40th anniversaries came with this gray wheels with silver calipers, and the body shell uses a special color called the Verde Artemis, which is this greenish blue color. Aside from the body shell, at the rear window area, they use this carbon fiber looking material. Also, the interior is also different, where it has two-tone seats, but the outer color of the driver's seat and the passenger seat are different. The outer color of the driver's seat is gray and it uses a different type of leather, whereas on the passenger side is black. So it's a two-tone interior, if you know what I mean, which is quite interesting. I've never seen that in cars before. Now, performance-wise, there aren't a lot of upgrades from the already very capable Murcielago, but the exhaust system in this car was specifically made. The Murcielago we all know is part of the V12 lineage of Lamborghini. Since the first Lamborghini model, the 350 GT, Lamborghini was already using 12-cylinder engines. This car is actually part of the Lamborghini Miura line, because the Miura was the first Lamborghini to use a mid-engine 12-cylinder setup. Back in the late 60s, when big brands such as Ferrari were still focused on using front-engine cars, Lamborghini was very forward-thinking and designed the Lamborghini Miura, which had the engine at the back, which is why a lot of people describe the Miura as the first ever supercar. And the Miura was so successful that Ferrari had to follow suit immediately, which gave birth to the Berlinetta Boxer. Now, after the Miura, of course, came the Countach, and then the Diablo, and now this Murcielago. Now, by the time the Murcielago was released, Audi had already acquired Lamborghini. So a lot of people say the Murcielago is an Audi Lamborghini. Now, while that's true, this car actually has a lot of its roots that could trace back to the olden day Italian Lamborghini. Most specifically, the engine. This 12-cylinder can actually trace its DNA all the way back to the first ever Lamborghini model, the 350 GT. Now, back then in the 60s, Lamborghini hired Italian motorsport heavyweight Bizzarrini to design the 12-cylinder engine. Now, Bizzarrini has a very impressive CV. He first started out as a test driver for Alfa Romeo, and then he was poached by Enzo Ferrari. And while at Ferrari, he worked on important projects such as the 250 GTO. And then in the 60s, Lamborghini hired him to design the engine, and that 12-cylinder engine is actually practically the same as the one in this car. Now, of course, after so many generations and so many years, the engine has been enhanced and changed a lot. So as opposed to a 3.5-liter engine, this car has a 6.2-liter engine and produces 580 horsepower. However, the DNA of the engine is actually the same as the one that was designed by Bizzarrini. And also, the Murcielago is the last Lamborghini that uses the Bizzarrini engine, for by the time of the Aventador, a completely brand new engine was designed. So this is actually a very important model in Lamborghini history, and certainly the last of its kind. Now, aside from being a special edition with a rare manual transmission, This car is also very rare in the sense that it only has one ever owner in its lifetime. The car has been with the same family since 2003. Now, back in 2003, the owner's father bought this car, and because it was the family's first ever supercar, he didn't tell his kids and brought it home one day out of the blue, this crazy looking car, and surprised his whole family with it. Since then, the owner has been taking care of the car and exercising it regularly. And actually, a few years ago, the owner contemplated selling this car and found a buyer. They actually agreed on a deal and everything. But fortunately, at the last minute, the owner decided that there's no way he can let go of this family heirloom, which is a very important piece of history in his family. Suffice to say, I don't think this car will be on the market anytime soon again. So it's time for a test drive. I am so excited. I can't explain with words how excited and nervous I am. My first ever time driving a V12 Lamborghini and in manual. Oh, okay, let's go. First impression, very roomy. You can tell with the headspace. And I usually say this about classic cars, but the visibility for such a relatively modern car is actually very good as well. So clearly they have improved a lot since your Countach or Diablo days. In fact, the owner told me that the visibility in this car is actually even better than the Aventador. The front windshield goes all the way down, huge side windows, and the rear, because the engine cover, as you know, is not completely blocked. They have a few pieces with space that you can see in between. It's actually great. You have huge rear view mirrors. So yeah, let's go. And another thing, the clutch. Oh my God, the clutch is so light. It's lighter than my 360 by far. Let's see if it's easy to maneuver. So it's a fly-off handbrake. Okay, but the moment you move off, you do feel how wide the car is. Okay, immediately you see me looking around because I have to be very careful with the maneuvering because the car feels very wide, so I keep looking left and right. But aside from that, everything else is very light. The throttle is light. The brakes is very normal, very civilized. One thing that shouldn't be light, and it is not, is the steering wheel. The steering wheel is it got a good weight to it. Other than that, so it's funny. It clearly feels like an exotic because it is. It's very wide. It's very low. But everything else, the aircon, and as I said, the clutch and everything feels very civilized. The clutch is very easy to set off in. I didn't really have to do any getting used to. It's actually easier to drive, strictly speaking, easier to drive than my 360 in terms of the clutch maneuvering and whatnot. It's also not loud in the cabin. I'm not shouting or anything. You can hear me talk fine. The engine, it's not muted, but listen to that. I'm not stepping on it yet, but it sounds, you can't beat a V12 engine sound. Okay, now we got some clearer roads ahead. Oh, listen to that! Gosh! Finally have a V12 Italian engine behind my back. extremely easy to heel and toe in the car. The pedal position is actually better than the 360 again. Wow, okay. Let me gather myself first. That was quite exhilarating. My first ever V12 exotic experience. Now, first things first, the car is very, very fast. It picks up very quickly. It does not feel heavy at all. When you step on it, it picks up very lightly. I think part of it, well, a big part of it is obviously because it has a 580 horsepower V12 engine. So this car is fast by all means. But secondly, I think being a four-wheel drive also really helps the pickup feel. But it's a very quick car, very, very fast car. Whew. I really need to compose myself again. That was really good. And according to the owner, actually, surprisingly, it's not that challenging or expensive, relatively, to maintain the car. Throughout his years of ownership, the only big items were really the changing of the clutch and the suspension. Again, I think this partly goes to because this is a one-owner car, so it was never abused or maintenance was never neglected. But from what the owner told me, his experience in owning this car and maintaining certainly gets me a bit jealous over my experience of owning my 360, for example. As you imagine, it's also a very torquey car, so you don't have to be in second gear or anything. In any gears, you just step on it and it goes. So I'm in third gear now. Just flies off. Smooth and powerful engine. The power delivery is just so impressive. I mean, you only get this sort of strong, torquey power delivery from V12s like this. I mean, it cannot be compared with the V8, that I'm more familiar with. It's just a whole different animal. We're coming to an end to our short test drive. And in conclusion, first of all, the experience is every bit how I imagined, if not more. This was not disappointing in any way. It's a really, you should meet your hero story. The engine delivered as I wanted it to. Powerful V12 with an amazing note. But I think the really surprising thing is how civilized this car is, how easy it is to drive. I mean, yes, the size is something you can't change. It's a big car, and if it's big, it's big. There's no technology can change that. But I mean, I know this is a modern car, 203, but I expected it to be some discomfort, to be some inconvenience in the driving experience. But aside from the size, it really haven't. As I said, the clutch, the gear changes, everything is actually even easier than my 360. So I am truly really impressed with this car. Thank you to the owner for letting me test drive this very important car of his, very special and unique car of his. And if you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed the car, and trust me, I really enjoyed the car, please give it a like, please subscribe, please also click the bell button so you know when our next video is coming, and we'll have more classic car video coming soon. Thank you.